Hi, I'm Emberstein.
And I'm Haley.
I'm Jerika.
And joining us this week, we are very pleased to introduce the wonderful, amazing even, Mazzmatazz.
Hello. Officially amazing.
Oh, yes.
Haley is licensed to hand out that designation, so it's legitimate.
And so is Chris Perkins. Anything he says is canon. It's canon. And this is Insight Check, where we delve into the dungeon of your bad decisions and retrieve the treasure of wisdom. Welcome, everybody, to another episode. Let us begin with our traditional dungeon crawl.
I can't contain my excitement. You all, I have watched perhaps one of the best D&D streams in the history of D&D. Okay, I'm overstating it. But still, it was quite enjoyable. It was Trapped in the Birdcage, which is DM'd by Holly Conrad, and there are 4 players. And I know that Maz also watched this and enjoyed it quite a bit as well.
It was excellent. I can quickly round up the players if you want.
Please.
Everyone knows Anna Prosser Robinson. She was playing Wilhelmina, the rogue, and I like to call her Wuari already because she's got that sort of Viari, I pick his pocket thing going on.
Accurate.
So, yeah, she was Wulari. We had Jimmy Wetzel as Saturn, and oh my god, he was precious. I've not seen anything Jimmy's done before. I think he's a Twitch streamer or a YouTuber. I'm not familiar with his work, unfortunately, but I'm going to get acquainted now after that because he's playing the bard and it was just precious. It was so precious.
Some players, they go for inspiration every game. Hacking crimes. But, I think Jimmy should just get it for his constant use of the triangle.
Absolutely. And he actually has a triangle,
yes.
Which was the most precious. I keep saying precious, but I loved it so much. Obviously, Holly was DMing, and Rita, the Warforged, was Chad Quant, and Rita is just adorable. Have you seen the art? My friend Kayla does the art.
Yes.
Yes.
And
great.
Rita is just so good. We're
The
very
eyes.
excited.
Big eyes.
She's doing some great things there, and there's some really great moments with Rita when he's trying to drink the tea and a few other things. He's gonna be a real character. And also, as Namer the Wizard was his Twitty such on Twitter, and Hadil. So she's playing Namer the Wizard, and she's not a good wizard. And I think she sort of came into the campaign.
Aspiring wizard that sets things on fire.
Definitely the setting things on fire thing. I think she came in the start of the campaign. And there was a lot of references to the circus she'd just left, blazing quite. Yeah, she left it in a hurry. It was blazing merrily. Yeah. And there was some real moments for her. They're all really good, strong players, and it was such an enjoyable stream to watch. I really loved it.
Really good characters, like really robust and not something that you see, I think, every day. We can categorize them in certain slots, but they all brought individual quirks and identities to the game, and I really enjoyed that. One piece of art, probably my favorite piece of art that Kayla did, was the crone. Which is the character that the players meet at the start of their journey. Not to get too spoilery, but there is sort of a meet in a tavern scenario, but Holly reworked it and just remixed it to be sort of its own thing. And Crone is the one that sort of facilitates this, what I'd like to describe as a meet cute in a exciting tea shop where interesting people frequent. But I'm super excited to see how these characters develop and see where Holly's gonna take them, because we all know that she is probably one of the best authorities on Planescape lore. And so I'm sure she's gonna dive into that and use all that knowledge to our entertainment and hopefully to the entertainment of the PCs, but we'll see.
I can't wait to catch up on it. It sounds great. I'm a sucker for well-developed, deep types of characters, and so that sounds like it's up my alley.
And I'm very much a sucker for Planescape. It was kind of the last world I played when I first came to Dungeons & Dragons when I was younger, and I didn't stop after that because the interest fizzled out. I stopped because the groups fizzled out, but I was totally enamored by it. And so when I was watching Holly working on kind of recreating that oxidized or corroded metal look for, I guess, her DM screen, I was pretty hooked. That's all it takes. Yeah. Like a good quality visual aesthetic that links back, I'm sold.
And I think Kayla actually brings that to this game.
Kayla's a big Planescape fan herself, so she knows exactly what Holly is looking for and needs in the art.
Yeah, I like having the unified kind of art feel for a stream. Kind of just gives it that depth and makes it even easier to get hooked into.
Yeah, you're so right. It feels so cohesive. I love it. I'm super excited.
But, we do want to let our listeners partake of this lovely stream at their own pace. So right. Before we do too much spoiling and, over-talking it, I would like to toss the ball over to Haley, who wants to make a little announcement.
Yes, I think we always have to do the fun time dilation with when this podcast will come out. So ECCC is taking place this weekend in the past.
Emerald City Comic-Con.
Or last weekend in your time, beings of the future. But if you attended ECCC, which I have to say very carefully or else I leave out the con part and it's just, or Emerald City Comic is what it would become. Anyway, if you attended and have any cool photos or stories to share with us, please send them along and tweet at us at InsightCheckPod and let us know how great of a time you had. I know I will be here on the East Coast being sad that I am not on the West Coast. But our very own El Ninja Cupcake will next pod hopefully be joining us to talk about the great time that she is going to have playing D&D there. So get hyped for that. /had. Yes, that is my announcement for now. Embers, do you have a dungeon crawl this week?
Well, one thing that I have been watching very closely is there's been a little bit of an explosion in the sprite style art. I don't know if many of you have seen it, but there's been...
Oh my goodness, yes.
The little C-Team pixel arts and AI pixel arts.
Yeah, I feel like there have been 30 at this point put out in the past week by user Eric Alloway.
Yep, at Iscanius, Iscaneus. Such good characterization in so few pixels.
And it's got that Fen magic, which if anybody listens, we don't need to get into this too much, but high praise. High praise.
Fantastic.
And even characters that we don't see very often, Eric has immortalized in pixels. I think there was a Propha that was really awesome. Glowman.
All of
Hussar. Yeah, really. Coriander even. So, real good stuff.
But with the bouts of plague that have been hitting the household over here, that's been about the cap of my bandwidth. That and trying to keep up with all the streaming content that I podcast now. Keeping up. So this is my first season with Critical Role, which is proving to be great because love them voice actors. Can't get enough of them.
I've been very hard on the Critical Role bandwagon this season. I'm very glad that they've decided to go podcast for the entirety right up front. So I've been able to keep up with it this time.
All handsome people with outstanding vocal qualities.
I've learned something there then because I didn't know they were podcasting this season of Critical Role.
They are, yeah.
Yeah.
It comes out the Thursday after, so you're on a little bit of a lag, but it's only a 1 week delay, and I am like on the road a lot and out a lot, so I like to be able to have my D&D in a downloadable and streamable without killing my data plan.
I will try and listen in. I've not been able to get engaged with it as watching it as a stream. But I'll give the podcast a go and see if I can engage with it in that way instead.
Yes, it's in there. They've got the whole first campaign arc as well, but they started these up titled, just campaign 2.
Yeah.
So I've just barely dipped into the old stuff, but I'm happy to be able to keep up with the new stuff this time.
And I really love the quality of the vocals that they master for the podcast. I don't know how much work it takes to get them there, but I know that all of those PCs bring some heavy performance experience and capabilities all through their voice. So for me, I get totally lost in it, and I really enjoy that.
I also enjoy just the depth that accents bring. I would love to be able to pull that into my own playing eventually. I will work on that, but I will just, in the meantime, continue to be inspired by their wonderful voice acting.
At some point, I'm just going to say, in lieu of actual talent, I'm just going to try accents.
I'm just going to try them.
I'm just going to go. Just gonna go for it.
Are there any accents that you that are your go-to, Embers?
No, because I'm equally lacking in skill across all possible accents. I can literally choose any accent. Maybe I've never even heard the actual authentic accent, and it wouldn't stop me. I'd give it a try.
Oh goodness. Well, let me know. Let me know where I can catch this. In high demand content.
On the topic of play-by-post.
That's great.
Where you don't need to be able to do accents.
It's true. In a play-by-post game, you wouldn't have to worry about the voices, although your choice of words might, be more important. I actually started my own play-by-post game this week, and it's the first time I am doing a play-by-post game. Haley and Embers are both in that game.
I'm very excited.
Ooh.
I've been drafting
entirely by accent.
I've been
by accent.
By accent.
Oh boy. And I actually wanted to ask Maz about their feelings about play-by-post and if they have any recommendations for this format.
Hello, that's me.
Hi.
Hi.
I know that you were starting a play-by-post initiative on your DM LoJack Twitter. Have you started that yet?
Yes, I was setting up games for people that couldn't or didn't want to play via voice for various reasons, whether they had hearing difficulty, meaning that it was a barrier to them playing, or whether they were very anxious about speaking on microphone and didn't want to do that and felt more comfortable typing. I believe you shouted out about that a little while ago when I was setting it all up. Thank you for that.
No problem.
We ended up with 2 games running on the server. It's completely play-by-post, but it's via a Discord server. So when we started, I set up a few rules, like I wanted people to check in every day and take their turn if it was their turn. I set up an out-of-character chat as well as a game chat for each game, so that if I was going to sit back and not say anything, I could just let them know, give them a quick note, or they could ask questions in the out-of-character chat that without impacting what was going on in the main game.
I was wondering if you were using or have highly relying on turn order or things like that, even out of combat or even in combat, if you were using turn order.
It was something I considered at first, and I thought about playing the whole game in initiative, but I didn't do that. Just went with people using their judgment and jumping in with their turn when they felt it was appropriate, and it seemed to work very well. one of the groups was more heavily role-playing than the others. We're still finishing up that game now, and the other group, we finished the game last week. They were a little more quiet and sort of more focused on getting through the story of the game.
And would you say combat was very similar to other types of formatted games, or were there specific significant differences for this?
So I did do combat in initiative order, just to keep that straight. And when I took the turn of the enemies or any NPCs that I was running, I would roll everything at once. So I would roll to hit and roll damage and just declare everything in one turn, and then get the players to respond and tell me how that affected them, and then retcon from there if they were sort of ended up unconscious or something like that. It made it run much more smoothly, and equally the players would roll their turn and damage at the same time, so that we weren't going backwards and forwards.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It just streamlined the whole process, and it worked out to be quite a good way of doing it.
Excellent.
I'm very excited to dive into Draika's new game and give this a test out, because I find sometimes, like, when we are playing in our voice chat that, you know, I have a little bit of hesitancy sometimes with the diving really into the role playing, and I have a much stronger writing background than I do a speaking and acting background. So I'm a little bit excited to I think it might help my vocal role playing to act things out a little bit more in text, because sometimes in the moment I just have trouble, like, thinking of exactly what I want to say. And
yeah, I felt that sometimes as a DM as well, where, like, even I'll, like, write notes for myself, like, I want to hit this, you know, this detail, and I want to hit that detail, and sometimes, like, getting caught up in the moment, I'll forget this really cool detail or whatever. So with this format, I find that I can put in those details and not forget them.
Yeah. And not come back at the end of the session.
Oops, I forgot that whole character. Oops. Yeah.
Right. There's this really, really cool thing that I need you to stick with me on, because I really wanted to cover it in the game.
Yeah, I think it could be really good for people that are new to DMing for that reason, because it gives you time to go away and think. And if you're sort of new and you're not sure, you could always ask for some advice before typing out what you want to say. For me personally, it's a very slow style of play, and I prefer to be present in person playing. So I will probably hand over the mantle to someone else to run this when it's finished. But it was a good experience and a good experiment, and it gave some people their first opportunity to play D&D, which was a really good thing to do.
Would you recommend Discord as a good medium for this kind of game?
Definitely, because you can set up permissions and channels, and you can have various games running. You can attach images if you need to. Not that anyone did. I did. I attached some maps for the combat.
Cool.
And it was a very, very good medium, I felt, for it.
On the topic of sort of exposition and storytelling, what matters most to you, Mazz-Ing? What are the things that you try to emphasize versus things that you don't think about as much?
Yeah, so I completely hold sacred player agency. Absolutely. It's sometimes a downfall for me as a DM, because I'm very wary of doing things that I feel may take away their agency. And it's only recently, with sort of working on backstories with my characters, that I felt that I've been able to put things in without taking away any agency. So a lot of the time, my games, they are chaotic, not helped by the fact that most of my players have chosen chaotic neutral as their alignment.
Oh, really?
Yes. I have a lot of games running. The main two that I've been running for, I think it's about 8 or 9 months now, have been in my homebrew world, and I have a group on Tuesday and a group on Wednesday. and they play in the same world, and their actions impact each other groups. And the Wednesday group are very focused on task, and the atmosphere is very different to Tuesday group, who I talk a lot about on Twitter, who are just, I have 7 players, and it's just mayhem.
Is this the
Absolute
chaos
mayhem.
group?
This is the chaos group.
I see.
It's just mayhem, and it's a lot of fun. It's absolutely a lot of fun, and that's all I want from my game, is that everyone comes out of it and just said that they had a really good time. Tuesday group, we didn't know each other. None of us knew I think maybe 2 people in that group were housemates, but out of the 8 of us, those are the only 2 that knew each other beforehand. And I just put it together on Reddit, LFG. I was just like, I'm a new DM. I need some players to help me get used to being a DM and learn and grow. And these people answered the call, and everyone is just really good friends now. And we chat in our Discord all the time about anything that crosses our minds. And
That is awesome.
yeah, so it's just built that friendship, and that's the sort of things I love with my game. You know, I just try to make that atmosphere really good when we sort of sit down to play together.
How is DMing, especially when you first all started playing together as a newer DM, how is a group of that size?
It did not start off as a group of that size.
Okay,
It has
so it's
naturally
grown over
grown.
time. I was like, wow, you are very brave.
Yeah. To be fair, and I say this a lot of the time, I pretty much only DM. I started out DMing. I have played 2 games as a player.
Okay.
I just love DMing so much. And so it doesn't really faze me. But we did start off, it was 4 players. And then people just got added in and picked up as we went along. And the band, it just
Stuck
grew.
around.
Yeah, just a ragtag band that just grew. But it works really well. They all bounce off each other really good. So it's nice. It's a really nice, fun atmosphere we have. Everyone's really comfortable with each other. And that's all I want from my games, really. Tell a good story and have a good time. I mean, it's their adventure, so I'm always sort of going to them and saying, what does your character want to do now, and what do they want? And we took a break over Christmas, and I sent out questions to everybody, and I was like, what are you enjoying? What are you not enjoying? What do you want to see more of? And what does your character want to achieve in the short term and the long term? And I'm taking all that and taking that all on board, because it's their game.
So would you
It's
say
mine as-
that part of your approach to writing, especially for homebrew adventures, is interaction and conversation with your players to kind of see what they are expecting?
I basically let them do my work for me. That's all it is. I'm like, oh, it's Monday. I have a game tomorrow. I haven't prepped anything yet. Let's ask everyone what they want to do and build a session from that.
You heard it here first, folks. Make your life easier. Have your players do the heavy lifting for you.
Exactly.
Do you find that you do a lot of ad-libbing, do a lot of work in-game? I mean, I've seen some of your maps, and they're, you put a lot of hours into them, definitely. As far as the actual playthrough, do you find that you get to places that you weren't planning to get to?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
I basically go into a session with an idea of where I want them to be at the end of the session, and then just see what happens in the middle. I just think, okay, they're at this city, we're going to have however many sessions in this city, this is the main arc, and whatever they want to do in the city is just going to happen. Which is how the Dragonborn stole my quest giver's top hat, ran off with it, went and stole a barrel, and rolled it down the street with a halfling piggybacking him.
To what end?
They were doing a side quest. They had to retrieve it. The barrel was already stolen. They were stealing it back. The hat thing was just their thing.
Yep.
I decided for this particular city, something I normally do is I do a bulletin board with quests on.
Gotcha.
Which gives it a real sandbox feel.
Yeah.
It's something I'm going to be doing. I was doing a DM tutorial blog, and I had to put that to one side over Christmas, but I'm going to start picking it back up again soon and doing some more tutorials. So my world building starts with usually NPCs and quests, and the bulletin board gives it a real sandbox feel. They can pick what they like off the board to do, or they can ignore it. So it gives them their sort of feeling of choice as to where they want to take the session. In this city, instead of a bulletin board, I had a NPC that just shouted out all the quests that needed doing.
That's
and he
funny.
had a big top hat. He had a big top hat with an exclamation mark on it.
I love that callback to video games.
Yeah,
I know, I was gonna say.
that was the aim with that one.
So it sounds to me like you would agree with the Perkins himself. DMs should really avoid over planning and thinking, to the nth degree what exactly is going to happen, because then you kind of lose some of that chaos that your players bring to the game.
Yeah, I mean, the way I do my prep is smart prep. I basically learned how to DM by watching Chris Perkins. I listened to all of the A-King podcast, watched all the stage shows. I watched DCA every week. And that is how I learned to DM, was just literally watching Chris Perkins do it. And I picked up a lot of things from him. The way I prep is what I call modular prep. So I will prep a table of NPC names, a table of attributes they may have, like they may be grumpy, they may be haughty, or they may be helpful. Mostly my NPCs aren't helpful. They're normally horrible people that don't want to help my players at all.
Well, then your players feel okay stealing barrels from them, so I think it all works out.
Right.
I just like throwing them into conflict all the time.
Right.
But things like that, and then I prop sort of like, I'll make a list, I'll go onto Kobold Flight Club and work out some combat encounters that are at that level that will challenge my players, which normally they steamroll every time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The internal DM's problem.
Exactly.
So I'll just have lists of things. If they're in a city, I'll have a vague map of the city, but I won't label any buildings, because if they say to me, "Is there like a potion shop here?" I'll be like,
yeah.
"Oh yeah," and then I'll pull out this chart that I printed off of Reddit that's got shop on it, and just go like that. So it's just building blocks that I put together. And like the quests, if a quest on a bulletin board doesn't get used, then I'll just re-skin it and use it again.
Sure, yeah.
And I just sort of recycle things. I have got a folder where I just write down ideas, and it's just got a plastic wallet with all these little scraps of paper in that have got random ideas in. Like, I think I've written down like Mer Beholder and things like that.
Right, you'll like plan something out and then you don't get to it, and then you just kind of put it away and you don't think about it again, but you did all of that brain work.
I've written down dog with bees in mouth. This is how my brain works. I've wrote down plot hooks, like a village that is exhausted because they stay up all night tending to huge bonfires because things happen at night and they're terrified, and then I will think about what's terrified them when I come to use that.
Ooh, I like that one.
Party TPK. Everybody is a ghost. They have to work out how to get their bodies back. There you go. You can have that one.
That's great.
Ooh, an interesting solution to a TPK. Your game doesn't have to be over.
No.
Right.
And I've got a dragon that hoards corpses.
Ooh.
Oh. Ooh.
So there's just some things from my little DM binder there.
Any listeners, if you borrow any of these A-Mazz ideas, please let us know how you utilize them.
Yes. Let us know how the corpse hoarding dragon goes.
I imagine it's a lich, but, that's just me.
Could be a Draco Lich.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Do you have any advice? I don't know how often, if at all, do you run published adventures?
I am running Curse of Strahd at the moment.
So when you have something like that, what do you find helps you maintain that feeling of not railroading your players?
Remembering to just make the adventure your own. It's a guideline. Everything is a guideline. The rules are a guideline. If your players want to go and do something else, let them. See what comes out of it. We actually had another death in Curse of Strahd last week, but I've thought of a little plot that I could use and turn it into a not death. So they can go off and do that little quest, and it's funny where ideas come from. Just watch how other people run it, if it's an existing module, or just put your own ideas in. Everything's just a guideline. Nice. I find that I get my best ideas when other people have sort of planted seeds of ideas.
Actually, for the that's a really good point. For the play-by-post game that I am running, the final straw that made me say, okay, I'm actually going to sit down and run this adventure and write it was Jay, a mechanism Jay brought into our game. And I do think that inspiration and that sort of cross-pollination of ideas is super important, especially for DMs.
I think sometimes, since I am newer to D&D in general, and definitely to DMing, having run one small holiday adventure, I find
the most festive of holiday adventures.
The most maybe festive. We broke into houses and planted gifts. It's great.
That's super festive.
Yeah.
I've only been playing D&D since May last year, so less than a year.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, wow.
You are amazing with all this creative energy and output that you put into the D&D world, and only being, familiar with it for that short a time.
Yeah.
Kudos.
I think what stopped me from finding D&D for so long is you think that there's a lot of lore to learn, and you're like, oh, I need to know all this about the game, and I need to know this before I can play it. And as soon as I realised that's not true, you can make up whatever you want, I was like, this is for me. And so I've learned lore now as I've gone along, but yeah, that's why I wrote a homebrew world, because I was like, I don't know any lore, I'm going to write my own.
Sure.
That makes sense. Yeah, I definitely struggle with that.
Because you have, you look at the books and the tables and the turn cycles and the rules and the classes and all of the structure that's been built over many, many different editions and iterations. And unless you have this, almost myopic focus of I'm going to get into this game, it can be very intimidating to think that you have to incorporate all of that before you can, write down your first character's first name and make the first idea kind of solidified onto a character sheet for the first time ever.
You're talking about me.
And it's not the case. You can have an idea, or you can have an inspiration. You can see someone on Critical Role playing, a race and a class pair that you think is really cool. You can watch Jim Dark Magic pull out his dueling wands and say, oh my gosh, that's for me. It doesn't, you don't have to know every single thing, as long as you have sort of a seed of an idea that really enthralls you, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I'm starting to slowly loosen up the desire to play D&D correctly. It's been a process.
I don't think I ever played correctly in the first place, which helped.
Yeah, I only started playing. When did we start our campaign, Jerika? In August, September, yeah,
maybe.
So last summer, end of the summertime. So I've only been playing for a while, but I'd been listening to the AI podcast and everything for forever. But I was like, I don't know these rules. I can't play unless I know every single rule and I know how to do everything right. And now I just try to do things and see if they work. And so I'll eventually embrace that for my DMing. But it's nice to hear, reminders of just kind of let it happen, and you don't have to plan out everything.
Yeah, you can still, the story will still be told, you and the PCs will tell that story together.
Yeah.
I think that's why I really love to DM for kids quite a lot. I DM in person at a tabletop games club locally, and we've got all ages there. So I got some kids that are like 9 years old just come to my table, and they love D&D. I've introduced them to it, and they just love that they can do whatever they want. And their ideas are some of the most creative things anyone could come up with, because they're not constrained by what are the rules and what can I not do. They're just like, hey, I want to do this. And I'm like, okay, go for it. And they love what they can. And I tweeted out something that happened on Sunday. So there's the 2 9-year-old boys that have just started learning and coming along, and they really love it. And there's like their mom and their aunts with them. And their cousin came along as well. And I said she was a little nervous because she'd not been in the room before. And I said, do you want to join in? You can play too. And she was like, no, I'll just listen. I'll just, see how this goes. And just watch you all. And then she sort of started helping one of the ladies make decisions and rolling the dice. And it got to the end of the session, and she just stood up and she went, that was really cool. It was like a movie in my head. And I was just
so
that is the best thing anyone has said about a game.
That is
amazing.
Really wonderful.
And the whole session she'd been doodling, and they showed me at the end she'd drawn herself as a wolf. And then like she was looking for the player handbook, and she'd picked out that she wanted to be an elf. And she's like, oh, but I don't know what class. And I was like, well, druids can be wolves. They can shapeshift. And she was like, I'm going to be that. And so she's making up an elf druid and coming along next time I run a session.
That's so awesome.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah, that's that seed of an idea, that feeling that a character can give you when you embody them. I love it.
And I love that you can tap into the kind of childlike curiosity when you play with kids. I've never done it. I'd love to try it. It just knowing how people I've played with when I was 12 or 13 or whatever when I started, and people I play with now who are, in the in by popular language, they're grown-ups, and they're trying this because they read an article in the New York Times or something about Dungeons and Dragons, and they remembered it from when they were kids, but they never played it. Seeing how the 12-year-old versions of those people played, and how the, call it 35-year-old versions of those people played, you get so much more constrained and conservative. This is me being very generalized, but you become so conservative in how far you'll let yourself go in role playing, and how much you'll share. It can be very cathartic when quote unquote grown-ups eventually do get there, if they're struggling early on. But just to be able to take something and run with it without those constraints, even without the constraints of the social anxiety you get when you're 12 or 13, like to be 8 or 9 and playing this game, it's got to be such a thrill ride.
I have to say that DMs can also give players tools to kind of rekindle this feeling. I have to say that, so Jay has dubbed me the obviator for our group. And as obviator, I get a bag, and I get to pull out up to 10 gold worth of objects from the items list in the player's handbook, and also weapons if I need them. And then I get to say what I'm going to do with them. And then I roll, and depending on the number I roll, it's either a failure, like a terrible failure, a success, or an overwhelming success. And because of the wide range of options I have to put scenarios together with all those items and all those weapons, I have had the most fun kind of reverting back to childhood.
I was going to say, you went very Home Alone on last night. and created a soap slip and slide down a mountain to push people away from us. It was great.
Yep, and it was, you know, for lack of a better word, I had a lot of just joy doing that because it was kind of a novel way to play D&D, but it was so interesting, I think, to Jay to see something like that happen, that he let the effect linger. And I was proud of myself. But I think that the culture that a DM provides at the table and the resources a DM gives can lend to more expressive and more creative playing.
Well, I know what I'm stealing.
If you hit Jay up on Twitter, I'm sure he would love to give you all those.
My Tuesday book are going to get a bag of crazy.
I love it.
Exactly. It's the Mary Poppins bag of murder.
I'm actually going to call it that.
I think that's a great name.
It's been a lot of fun to see the things that you come up with. Yeah, we talk a lot about like giving your players a job. Like that's really helped me to like have a set thing that's like it's my character's responsibility to do this thing. Like as a new player, that's helped me a lot. But I think specifically trying to find things to like engage your inner childlike side like is in there for all of us. We all still have it, I'm sure, somewhere. Even though I've been like middle-aged since I was a teenager.
Yep.
I still,
as the kids say, a big mood.
Skipped past maiden and mother and went straight to crone. I've had that feeling.
Went straight to the mom of all of my friends. And sometimes I think that's sometimes I have trouble like loosening up a little bit in game and like being a little bit sillier, but it's been coming out. My character now has like she can summon toy horses because she's a child.
You're really excited about those horses.
I just want to use the toy horses. They're life-size herd, a 2d4 of life-size toy horses. Make a small herd. I just want to use them for something. But I think giving your players something that's like sets them on the path towards a little bit of silliness and a little bit of loosening up, even when situations can be pretty stressful in some games, depending on your campaign danger level, is good. I would love to hear, Maz, if you could give a new DM one piece of advice. Maybe a piece of advice that we haven't already given, because we've already given some great advice. But if you could give another piece of advice, what would your big advice be?
I recently, Rachel Seeley was prepping for her first game as a DM, and she mentioned it on DCA and on Twitter. And I tweeted her, the one thing that I would say is your players don't know if you've messed it up unless you tell them. So just don't tell them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just look like you know what you are doing. You know, they're not going to know if that creature was meant to be resistant to a certain damage or not. Unless, like, you've got a rules lawyer checking the monster manual and then you just go, I'm the DM, I do what I like.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I love that.
But yeah, you just don't need to tell them. They don't know. They might think it's all part of it. I just make it up all the time.
I think that's really, really good advice. And, you know, hopefully it'll shake out some of those nerves.
Because a lot of people do sort of get quite not up about DMing and worrying that their players are going to know. But they're not. They're really, really not. It's like I compare it exactly to, you know, when people sort of draw a piece of art. They've drawn a picture, they've painted a picture, or sculpted something, and they're like, this is terrible, the nose is wrong, the eyes are off, and everyone else is just like, that's some really cool stuff, I really like that. It's exactly the same with DMing. You're the artist creating a picture, and everyone else is probably going to think it's great.
And it's okay
to
steal your phrase from your stream earlier. It's okay if it's a little more of a Picasso than a Da Vinci.
Oh, this thing is definitely a Picasso.
I really, really liked it. It's going to be my motto.
No, it's a great way of putting it, because you, as the person who is trying to communicate something that may already be very fully formed and clear in your head, you're going to innately, well, I say you, I mean me, I'm going to innately be really focused on everything that I meant to say but forgot to say, or meant to describe but forgot to describe, and the more I think of that, the more it's going to trip me up. And it's going to be something these are all things to which the party could be totally oblivious. And honestly, maybe they'd care less because they're having fun with it. They're not worried about maybe the one attribute or the one rule that doesn't completely back this up, because they're trying to have fun in an adventure. And so as a DM, you can kind of let that happen and be a part of that.
And actually describing things less is a good thing sometimes. My descriptions, if I want to say something specific, I write myself a box text if I want to specifically describe a scene. But like I said with the cities, I don't label anything, because if they want something that I've not thought about, if nothing's labelled, then I can just go, yeah, that's where it is, and just add it in. And they don't know that I never thought of that unless I tell them.
Right.
And they just think, oh, okay, cool. You planned for that all the time? That's great. Let's go there.
Exactly.
You are so smart, thinking of everything we need.
Yeah. And I do
But it
appreciate
also allows...
I do appreciate you, saying that, because now we know, now it's like that's how it happens. You leave that space open for the ideas of the players.
Yeah, I'm sure I read a tip somewhere when I was very first starting out that sometimes maps and having visual terrain can distract players and make them too focused on what is in the scene. I like doing a lot of theatre of the mind combat and not completely describing it, because if they want to go, if they're, say, in a tavern and a fight breaks out and they're like, they want to say, oh, I'm going to look around. Is there a bottle I could break? And you can just be like, yeah, sure. And it gives them agency to do what they want to in that scene, because you've not described every last detail. You've left them room for their imagination to fill in.
I think we should leave it there. I think that's a great thing for all of us to think about as we go forward in our DM lives, adventures. Yes, our real life IRL adventures.
Maz, is there anything that you'd like to plug or tell the community about, or anything that we should be keeping an eye out for that you're working on currently?
Well, it will be finished by the time the people of the future listen to this podcast. See, I'm down with this already.
So good people.
At this. You're already a pro.
I watch
at the
a lot
time
of Doctor Who. I'm good with this. Time wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey. That's the thing. So, when you all step out of your TARDISes, can I say that?
Sure.
That's trademarked, isn't it? Well, never mind.
It's TARDIS TM.
Indeed. Trademarked BBC worldwide.
Yes.
When you all step out of your phone box-shaped time-traversing machines, hopefully some pictures will be up of what I've been working on recently on my streams, which is for Holly Conrad. I have been making a Strix doll, and it is, even if I say so myself, amazing.
It looks so good. We were all
so great.
In the words of Chris Perkins, amazing.
We were all watching you stream the music box and the top, making them, and I was super impressed by how straight your sewing was and how detailed you've gotten all these things. They were immediately identifiable, every single object that you showed us during the stream, and it was just a really pleasant experience.
I think my favorite part were the little goblin, your little tiny goblin fingers that you did.
They are pretty cool.
Were they goblin fingers or were they troll fingers? Did I say that wrong?
Goblin fingers.
Okay, I did it right. I'm not super up to date on my DCA.
Yeah, Holly posted a while back a full list of the inventory. Chris Perkins gave her a list, which I think a lot of it comes from the Curse of Strahd trinket roll tables. Now I've read through Curse of Strahd, I can see where it's like some of the things have come from. But she had a long list of inventory items, and when she was playing Strix at PAX West in the big AI game, she made all of the items for her cosplay. So I've been referring back to that quite a lot, and I've been making every single inventory item on that list in miniature.
Oh my lord.
The doll itself is quite big. With the hat on, it's 2 feet tall.
Wow.
But the doll itself is crocheted. It's got individual fingers and toes with fingernails glued on. She's got her staff. She's got the really gross, raggedy, wet felted cloak. She's got her little fangs.
I love the teacup. It's probably my favorite part.
That was a Hello Kitty teacup that I hadn't painted.
But it looks like you had some pink tea in it.
That's the bit I didn't paint.
Very cool.
It retains
I may
its
go over
roots.
that in red to make it look like blood.
Yes.
That would be quite cool. But yeah, I'm literally working on. I've just finished the music box while talking to you. That's all been beaded and detailed. So I'm just literally got to do the spinning top and my Picasso. And it's finished, and I can, coordinate with Holly. She is freaking out about it. She's in love with it already.
Well, we all look forward to seeing the final pictures on your Twitter. I assume it's going to be at A-Mazz-Ing.
Yes, should you wish to have your own D&D character, I do say I don't do anything that is Wizards IP or anyone else's IP, because
Sure.
you can get sent cease and desist. You can have lawyers on your back if you start infringing on people's trademarks and copyrights and things. But if you have an original character, your own D&D character, you can commission me to make one of those.
And what's the best way to start that conversation?
I have an Etsy store. Let me just double check this link, because it is slightly different to everything else. I am Reptile Textiles on Etsy, because I have a lot of reptile pets, so that was my thing when I set up my Etsy shop.
Sure.
Reptile Textiles on Etsy, Mazmataz, Twitter, Twitch. I think I might be Reptile Textiles on Facebook as well.
Gotcha.
I do have a page there. Instagram is Mazmataz. Mostly Mazmataz
Cool.
is where you can find me.
Go ahead and check out all those lovely venues to consume the content from this lovely human.
Please consume my content. It's delicious.
It sure
content.
is.
Nom nom nom.
As
nom,
delicious
and
as a flump.
as a flump. Yes.
Thanks for inviting me.
It was lovely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us.
And now you get to hear us be cheesy and do our outro.
I will put
Yes.
on my NPR voice and do the outro. Thank you again to the most amazing TM canon, courtesy of Christopher Perkins, Maz, for imparting this wisdom upon us. Also, as always, to Vinswept for our intro and outro music, and to Amy T. Falcone for our beauteous artwork. And, as always,
This
was...
Insight.
Tag.
It was perfect on
I
the
love
first
it.
try.
I love it.
it was.
All right. Do you feel comfortable saying check?
I'm pretty sure I can say check.
Okay.
Check.
You can say it in any voice that you want. Sometimes I go for a terrified voice just to change
that's
things
what
up.
that was.
Jack? Yeah, see, I'm really good at accents.
Yes, indeed.
I could do it in an accent.
Sure.
I can do it in the voice of Terry, the quest giver.